Joy Behar thinks that Antifa is a fictitious organization. Joe Biden wants to have the largest tax increase in 30 years. And Jen Psaki still thinks the immigration crisis is just a challenge. And I have a lot to say about that. Before we get into our lead story, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It will push my videos out there with the power of the YouTube algorithm. Also, make sure you hit that bell so that you're notified every time we upload, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our lead story today comes from our friends over at Blaze Media. It is written by the greatest, the legend, Phil Shiver, and he titles it, "The View co-host Joy Behar insists Antifa is fictitious, doesn't even exist." Phil starts off by saying, Joy Behar, co-host of ABC's The View, claimed during Monday's show that Antifa, a recognized violent left-wing organization responsible for much of the rioting damage to American cities over the last year, is fictitious and doesn't even exist. Behar made the incredible statement while the panel discussed remarks made last week by Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, in which the lawmaker suggests he never felt threatened during the Capitol riot on January 6th, but would have been more concerned if the rioters were members of Black Lives Matter or Antifa. The host took issue with Johnson's comments, saying, "If I was surrounded by people carrying weapons, people erecting nooses, screaming 'Hang Mike Pence,' bludgeoning a police officer to death," that didn't actually happen, "I might be a little scared. But Ron, no, he's not scared of these people. He's scared of this fictitious idea of Antifa, a thing that doesn't even exist. He needs to go, and soon." If you haven't seen The View, I highly recommend that you go over and just give it a shot. Just watch it a little bit. Everybody needs a pick-me-up. Everybody needs that comic relief. This is the show that's going to do it for you. You got a bunch of people on the show that think they know what they're talking about, but in reality have no idea, and there's no self-awareness to know that they have no clue what they're talking about, and they actually think that they do. And there's nothing more comedic than that. And you have Joy Behar that's going on air constantly saying crazy stuff, and you have Meghan McCain, and kudos to her, keeping a straight face the entire time. I can't even get through this segment without laughing. Just the stuff that comes out of Whoopi Goldberg's mouth, Joy Behar, and the rest of the cast of The View, it's just on another level. And you have Joy Behar sitting here saying that Antifa doesn't exist, and Meghan McCain is able to keep a straight face. I got to give it to her. You don't want to play poker against that woman. But here you have it, Joy Behar saying that Antifa does not exist. Let's check it out.
Right out there with his racism. There's no dog whistle for him. You know, it's like, I'm a racist. Have a nice day. You know what I mean? I guess, you know, it's funny. When I was watching this, it's so aggravating to listen to this idiot. I mean, he and I are very different. I'll tell you this right now. If I was surrounded by people carrying weapons, people erecting nooses, screaming, "Hang Mike Pence," bludgeoning a police officer to death, I might be a little scared. But Ron, no, he's not scared of those people. He's scared of this fictitious idea of Antifa, a thing that doesn't even exist. He needs to go. He needs to go, and soon.
Right. Sonny, what I
don't know if you saw Meghan McCain's face, but she almost broke. She almost started laughing. It was that crazy. Let's take a closer look at Meghan McCain.
And soon.
Right. Sonny, what I saw
All jokes aside, there are a few points I want to make here in regards to what Joy Behar said. The first of which is her calling Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin a racist. I didn't even bother looking up what he said. Could it have been racist? Sure. Could he be a racist? Maybe. I know nothing about the guy, but the point I'm trying to make is that Joy Behar and the rest of the cast of The View are constantly calling people a racist, sexist, bigots, homophobe, xenophobic. The laundry list of what the left calls the right or conservatives. They're constantly doing this, and it's almost like the boy who cried wolf, where after a while, you just don't believe them anymore. And you constantly are looking up the people that they're calling racist, and they're not, in fact, actually racist. And for me, that's kind of sad, because when somebody calls somebody a racist, I want to believe them. I think racism is evil. I think racism is wrong. But when you're constantly calling somebody racist, and it tends not to be true, it just diminishes, one, what a racist is, and two, it makes me not want to believe you. And that's where I'm at with The View. I just don't believe when they call somebody a racist anymore, and that's a sad thing that is happening. My hope is that they revert from that and just stop slandering people and constantly calling them a racist. Just cool it on that stuff, and when you actually see a racist, yes, then let's call it out. We'll stand together on it. We'll fight it. We'll go against it. But again, you're just constantly calling people racist, and it just gets old after a while. The second point I want to make is Joy Behar saying that Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick was bludgeoned to death, when in fact he wasn't. The initial report was that he was bludgeoned to death or bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher, but news came out later, I think about an hour later, and said that he ended up suffering from a stroke and maybe a few other causes. But let's hear CBS News talk about, unfortunately, this Capitol Police officer passing away from a stroke.
Breaking news coming out overnight as a police officer with the U.S. Capitol Police has died. He suffered a stroke during the riots on Wednesday. You were looking at video of police lining up outside the Capitol in honor of 40-year-old Brian Sicknick. He was a 15-year veteran of the force. No information has been given about where the officer was stationed when these riots took place. The news of his death came just minutes after U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund announced he was resigning from his position.
And the last thing I wanted to talk about in regards to what she said was just the whole idea of Antifa not existing and being fictitious. I don't know where she got this crazy idea from, but we have even here that CBS talks about Antifa has no official national leadership, though followers have organized themselves into small local cells that sometimes coordinate with other movements such as Black Lives Matter. Some self-described Antifa adherents have organized to confront Patriot Prayer, the Proud Boys, and other far-right groups during public demonstrations. Some of those rallies have developed into violence. Some Antifa adherents keep a very low profile, while other local groups venture to give themselves a more public profile with a name and a website. So if this wasn't real, if this was all fictitious and fake, why are there people out there that are creating websites? They're in groups. They have actual Antifa flags and stuff written on their clothing that say they're with Antifa. You walk up to them and say they're with Antifa.
We cover our face because the Nazis will try to find out who we are. And that is a very bad thing because they harass people. When they organize, they kill people, they hurt people, they fight people. And we're the ones who are fighting back. They are the second coming of Hitler.
They wear insignias that show that they're part of Antifa.
Explain to me the reasoning behind fighting.
You have to make it so unpalatable to be doing white supremacist organizing that they no longer want to do that. And historically, that's what's worked. You have to put your body in the way, and you have to make it speak in a language that they understand, and sometimes that is violence.
There's no firm number on how many Antifa activists there are in the U.S. because there isn't any one organization. Most are local groups that recruit and communicate through social media.
If this stuff was just an idea, then how are these people coordinating with other groups like Black Lives Matter to go against the Proud Boys or Patriot Prayer or far-right organizations or quote-unquote other fascists, even though Antifa is also a fascist organization because they follow in the same footsteps and actions as Mussolini's fascists did from the 1920s. But again, Joy Behar doesn't have a clue what is going on. It's just like she lives in some sort of alternate reality than all of us do, where Antifa doesn't exist. They're not destroying our cities, lighting our cities on fire, blowing through Starbucks windows, looting the whole place. It's just like, where do these people come up with some of this stuff and go on national television every single day and spout this kind of propaganda? You're not helping the situation. You're only making it worse by having people actually believe the stuff that you're saying, even though the stuff that you're saying is completely false and is putting people in the wrong direction as far as where things are going with this country. You're making them think that this stuff doesn't actually exist. But again, the conservatives, we're the conspiracy theorists, we're the ones that are saying fake news. We're the ones that are constantly saying stuff that isn't true. But yet you have Joy Behar saying that some guy died from being bludgeoned to death, even though he didn't. Saying that Antifa doesn't exist, even though they do. It's just, all you could do is laugh at it. That's really all you could do. Our next story also comes from Blaze Media, and it is also written by Phil Shiver, and he titles it, Biden Reportedly Planning Largest Tax Hike in Almost 30 Years. President Joe Biden is reportedly planning the largest hike in federal taxes in almost 3 decades to fund a long-term economic recovery program to follow in the footsteps of the recently passed $1.9 trillion stimulus package. Phil goes on to write, but the sources said the planned changes are not designed to fund only the key priorities of the administration. With the tax hike, Biden's team hopes to address what Democrats argue are inequities in the tax system itself. According to the Bloomberg report, the changes include raising the corporate tax rate to 28% from 21%, paring back tax preferences for so-called pass-through businesses such as limited liability companies or partnerships, raising the income tax rate on individuals earning more than $400,000, expanding the estate tax's reach, a higher capital gains tax for individuals earning at least $1 million annually. Don't you guys just think this is a great idea? I mean, it's not a big deal, right? Just Biden's first week of office, just, trying to increase the federal minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $15 an hour after keeping businesses closed down for an entire year. No biggie, right? And then he can't get that pushed through, so now he's trying to get, a tax increase pushed through because of inequality and inequity. And, just screw the business owners. Really just tax the shit out of them by going from 21% to 28% and increasing individual tax rate on anybody making more than $400,000 a year that are likely to own those businesses and keep people employed. But let's tax them because right now is a great idea. This dude is such an idiot. He has no clue the consequences of the stuff he's pushing through, and he's treating this exact thing right here with the same way he's handling immigration. It's completely a disaster. The guy hasn't thought this stuff through. What an idiot. Who in their right mind would think this is a good idea right now? I get maybe, hey, you want to have this conversation years on down the road if you make it that far, but you're going to sit here and try to increase taxes right now after people were closed down for an entire year and some of them are never going to open up again? This is what you get when you have a Democrat in office, folks. You got a guy that's clueless, doesn't know his own name, doesn't know his wife's name at times, doesn't know his own secretary general's name or the defense secretary. It's just And that's what you get when you vote in a non-sentient Democrat like Joe Biden into the White House. They don't have a clue on how to run policy. They don't have a clue on how business works. They just love spending your money. And it's not just Joe Biden that doesn't have a clue. In our other news story here, we have Jen Psaki being grilled by a Fox News reporter on the border crisis. FEMA has now been called in to take care of this border issue, this immigration issue that Joe Biden has caused, even though he's going to put the blame on Trump. It's his doing because he's the one that removed Trump's policies. And it just so happens once they were removed, now they're having over 600,000 people coming across the border in the span of 4 months. He's on track to beat out Trump's 3 years in 1 year. That's how bad things have gotten. Over 30,000 children, unaccompanied and single children, crossed the border in February alone. But they are not calling this a crisis. It's just a challenge. It's just a problem. It's not a big deal. Even FEMA has gotten involved, and FEMA only deals with crises. So the fact that she's saying this is absolutely nuts, but it doesn't come as any surprise. Again, she works with a person that says nutty things that doesn't know his name. But let's go ahead and check out the clip of Jen Psaki not making sense once again.
And then on immigration, does FEMA's arrival at the border mean that the administration feels what is happening down at the border is a disaster?
I know that we always get into the fun of labels around here, but I would say our focus is on solutions, and this is one of the steps that the president felt would help not become a final solution, but help expedite processing, help ensure that people who are coming across the border have access to health and medical care. Clearly, the numbers are enormous. This is a big challenge, and
there you have it. This is a big challenge. The numbers are enormous. We're trying to find solutions. How about putting back in place the Trump's administration's policies, and at least let's have that be a start, and that way you'll stop the bleeding. How about starting the border wall construction back up? How about doing those things just for a start rather than just sending FEMA in for a problem that you caused? And I love, we're trying to find solutions. That just shows you that they can't wrap their head around the problem that they have caused. They don't have any solutions. They don't know what the hell to do.
It certainly is a reflection of using every lever of the federal government to help address that.
With FEMA, though, specifically, their mission is helping people before, during, and after disasters. We've heard you say that it's a problem, that it's a challenge. Is it now a disaster?
I appreciate the opportunity. I do like your mask. But I will say that FEMA is there to help ensure that the people who are at the border, who are coming across the border, have access to HHS and
I say this every time, but when somebody's fumbling through their words like that, they're looking down, they're not looking at you in the eyes, they don't have a clue on how to answer you. They're just trying to find some way, shape, or form that they could BS you right to your face and get through it. And this is exactly what Jen Psaki does on a weekly basis. I guess at least she's not saying, hey, I'm going to circle back, but she's caught here. That's exactly what FEMA does. That's their mission. They go in during disasters, during times of crisis, and they try to help or at least remedy the situation. And you have a disaster crisis going on at the U.S.-Mexico border, and you caused it. And it is baffling that you don't have any ideas how to fix this thing, and you don't even have any ideas going forward that you're presenting to the press. You don't have a clue, and we all see right through you.
There are shelters that we can swiftly place them with vetted families. They're playing a number of roles there to address what we feel is a significant problem and a significant challenge. And I think we haven't been hiding about that.
There you have it. The Biden administration, they don't want to take responsibility for this crisis they have caused at the U.S.-Mexico border because it's everybody else's fault. It's Trump's fault. They inherited this immigration problem. It wasn't the fact that they removed his policies and all of a sudden people started coming into the country illegally, hundreds of thousands of people at a time, wearing Biden shirts, telling reporters that he's migrant president. We're expecting him just to let us in willy-nilly. It's not any of that. It's always somebody else's fault. But there's a reason why they don't want to take responsibility for this immigration crisis. The first reason is they want everyone to think that they didn't make a mistake and that Joe Biden is in control. They don't want everyone to see that Joe Biden isn't all there. They don't want everyone to see that your electric toothbrush has more power than Joe Biden's brain does. They don't want people to see that. And the second reason is that if they claim responsibility for this mistake, it gives credence that Trump's immigration policies were actually working, meaning Trump was actually fixing something, and they don't want to admit that. Lastly, here's my prediction. I think the Biden administration is going to continually screw things up and that you're going to have the leftist media that are going to push a narrative, making it seem like he's coming up with solutions and fixing problems when in reality, he's making things worse. We'll see how it plays out, but I'll keep you up to date on all the news stories regarding immigration, the tax increases, how the economy is going, as well as what the Biden administration is doing and not doing. And that is all the news I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and I'll see you next time here on The Bald Brad Show.